Hey y'all, good morning. I am your friendly daycare owner, but I'm also a professor of psychology. And so I'm going to put on my professor hat for a little bit this morning because I want to talk to you all about stress. Really important in this job. If you've never felt stress, you will feel it when having multiple children scream at you because they need something at one time, right? So this is a really high stress job, guys. And so, as a daycare owner who really believes that we have an overwork, overstress problem in the society, the psychologist in me really believes that, and that we don't do a great job of seeing people's strengths and seeing the beauty in them instead of just seeing what they don't do right, And I try really hard to not be that kind of boss, but sometimes my own stress overtakes me, and I am, right? None of us are perfect, but I really want to spend some time talking about how your stress impacts you and your work with people around you. I know for the bank site, for the pre-K site, I had said I was going to get you guys like a feelings thermometer, and so I didn't find any that I liked. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to create my own, and I have no space to do that because I feel so strongly that as we age and in the expectations of this is what you need to do because you're an adult now, this is your to-do list, it's stress that overtakes almost all of our feelings. It impacts our happiness, our sadness, our disappointment, our guilt, everything sort of gets usurped by the being an adult and having to do stuff, right? So I want to talk about stress and how to manage it. And I also am going to start making, for the daycare, for Shining Lights, I'm going to make a stress thermometer instead of a feelings thermometer. Basically from 1 to, actually I'm going to make it to 20 because there's a lot of little facets in there that I want to hit. Because probably your stress level is going to correlate to some feelings, right? Either negative or positive. There are no negative feelings, but feelings that might come out in maladaptive ways, like anger and maladaptive coping mechanisms, okay? So I'm going to put my professor hat on, and I'm going to use my board that I usually use for statistics, and I'm going to talk about acute and chronic stress because it's really important when you're talking about how you deal and how you cope with stress to know the difference. Acute, okay, this isn't trigonometry. I'm not talking about a right angle. Okay, 2 types of stress, and it's really important that we understand the difference because how we respond to these things, if we're responding to them using the wrong method, it can actually make it worse. Okay? Acute stress is stress that is going to go away. That doesn't necessarily mean tomorrow, but it's going to go away, and you know it's going to go away. You know probably when about it's going to go away. Chronic stress is stress that you don't actually see an end in sight to this stress. Raising children is chronic stress, even though people would say, oh, 18 years. 18 years is a really long time. A, and B, you're still a parent. Okay, so it is. And you can love your children, you can love the children you work with, and still acknowledge this as a stressor. Okay? Same thing with a job. If you're stuck in one, especially that you don't see having an end in sight. Trauma is usually a chronic stressor for people. Any trauma that you're dealing with, it doesn't need to be that you're being beaten either, you guys. Trauma is a negative experience that is significantly impacting you, that is causing your fight or flight system to get stuck in overdrive so that you never really get out of it. Okay, so you have acute and chronic stress, and then you have 2 types of problem solving that we usually take as humans to manage stress. Okay. Problem-focused coping and emotion-focused coping, okay? And problem-focused is a less mature or a less advanced, I'm not trying to say it's bad, sometimes it's just fine, but way of solving problems. And emotion-focused is, this is work, this is hard work. Because when you're problem-focused, you're looking at how do I solve this problem? How do I make it go away or make it more manageable? It's very black and white. And when you're talking about emotion-focused coping, you're talking about how do I manage my emotions around this stressor? And that's harder, okay? So for acute stress, research has shown that if there is something that you know has an end in sight, problem-focused coping works really well. Problematically, we also tend to use or try to use problem-focused coping for chronic stress as well. And I'm going to draw a big X. because that's inefficient, okay? If there's a chronic stressor and you don't see any end in sight, that problem focused coping of this is how I'm going to make this go away, what'll tend to do is you're going to solve that problem in the moment, and it's just going to keep cycling back to it because it's chronic. There maybe isn't a black and white solution to the problem. So I have homework due on Sunday, and it's stressing me out because I don't know how to do it on Sunday. It's got to be done by Sunday. Okay, so you know that there's some type of end in sight, unless you never turn it in. Okay, and so an acute stressor can also become a chronic stressor and vice versa. And these are all things we need to keep in mind, because trying to solve a chronic stressor, like a bad marriage or a job that you dislike, or maybe you don't dislike your job, but you're not able to manage it really well, so it is stressing you a lot, and you're not going to quit it because you need to stay in it. Trying to use problem-focused coping mechanisms for that, like I just need to solve this and then it'll all be better, it's a grass is greener approach, and it doesn't usually work. When you're dealing with chronic stress, the only focus, the only control you really have is actually to use an emotion-focused coping style. And that is simply honoring and understanding your emotions around the situation and learning to control them and your perception of control within the situation. Okay. Problem-focused coping is I'm going to work really hard on this for this amount of time because then I know it'll be done. Problem-focused coping is my car needs an oil change. I'm going to get the oil changed. Problem-focused coping is I have an assignment due on Sunday that I don't really know how to do. I'm going to get a tutor. I'm going to just do the best I can. And then it'll be over. Chronic stress is I'm in a job I dislike, emotion-focused coping is I have this relationship I can't get out of for a lot of reasons, so I don't necessarily have a problem-solving ability here, or at least I don't think I do in my current state of mind. So then my only option is really to focus on the emotions, identifying the emotions surrounding it, and how do I manage those emotions within myself? Because what we try and do is we try and control. We try and use external things that we think we can control, because problem-focused coping is control, to manage our chronic stress. When in reality, you're going to find yourself cycling. Like the stress just keeps coming back around when I try and control the situation, the people in the situation. All I can really do is focus on my own emotions and control. So when we're talking about this in childcare, you guys, and I'm closing in on 8 minutes, and I promised I'd be less than 8 minutes to myself. So I'm sorry I got wordy again. But emotion-focused coping looks like this child won't stop crying, and it's triggering me. They cry all day. Everything I'm trying to do problem-focused, like giving them a stuffy, giving them a weighty, giving them a fidget, I've tried these things that are problem-focused, they're not working, and they just continue to cry. At that point, if you're trying to manage what could be a chronic stressor with problem-focused, it's not working. All you can focus on is what have I done to control the situation? Is this situation in my control? What are the emotions that this is sparking for me? And how do I control those emotions? You're focused on the emotions, not a solution to the problem. You are only focused on controlling what you can control. And a lot of times, you guys, spoiler alert, it's not much. There's not much you can control. There's nothing we can do about how the kid came in from home. There's nothing we can do about what the parents are doing at home. We can try and have conversations, and we certainly do. But at the end of the day, all we can control is what's happening here, in our space, in our centers, in our child cares. No one feels good when you try and use problem-focused coping to manage chronic stress and end up only getting more and more frustrated and exploding. That doesn't feel good to you either. So our goal as a center is to look at how do we ourselves manage our own emotions. What are things we can do to manage our chronic stress? Stay tuned for episode 2 because I'm going to talk more. I wanted to get into this today, but I want to keep it short. I'm going to talk more about what you can do. What are some emotion-focused coping strategies that we can do to manage not necessarily controlling the kid, because sometimes it's not possible, or our coworkers, because sometimes that's not possible, but look at what we can do to control our own emotions because that's what's going to help us cope through that situation. And I think if we all are using this language and we all have these tools, that can be really useful, because essentially what happens then is we can communicate using the same language with each other. Maybe you should this part of emotion focused coping, or I see that you are really stressed about this, so let's talk about how to problem solve it. Stress really drives feelings when we're adults, most of our feelings. So I'm going to encourage you today. I'm going to leave you with this, okay? You have no control over what happens to you in a given day. I know that we like to think we do, but at the end of the day, even if you have the most control, one thing can throw that whole thing out of whack. You've worked so hard to gain control over everything and have everything in the palm of your hands. And then at the end of the day, it all feels like you're doing all of this for nothing. And if you're with me on that and you feel that and you felt like that, you might be trying to hold on too hard to control. And there's really not much you can. The only thing you can control is yourself. You can't control what happens to you. You can control how you respond to it. And that is so true. And that is going to guide how we interact with our parents, with our kids, and with each other. And I really want to work towards making sure we're really solid, we're emotionally mature, and we're really healthy, is how we're doing that as a center. It's important to me to make sure we're all on the same page there. I want you to have an amazing Monday. I want you to think about something that's stressing you. It doesn't have to be work related. We can work on all sorts of things here, guys. But think about something that's really been stressing you at work, and maybe then one personal thing. And think about whether you have been trying to solve it with problem-focused coping and it's not working. And then we'll continue to talk about what you can do for emotion-focused coping. And I'm going to work on getting a stress thermometer out to you guys so we can communicate better with each other where we're at. Have a wonderful day.